You go. Where were we? You go up, and now is this where you actually have the?
Yeah, and it's on the way to Quartz Mountain that I have the encounter.
And what happened?
Well,
Play by play.
I am sitting there in the vehicle. I've got the driver. He's the ranking individual. We're in the lead vehicle. And I'm sitting right behind the driver. And then there's another.
You're in the back seat.
I'm in the back seat.
Okay. Is it a 4-door truck?
It's a 4-door truck. So,
Okay.
They didn't give you a shotgun? Come on.
No, they didn't give me a shotgun. I did not. I didn't yell it soon enough. The other guy got it.
Yeah.
He got shotgun.
Nose goes.
Yes. So I sucked that day. So, yeah. And then the guy in the front right in the passenger side, and then there's another person to my right, a young lady to my right. So anyway, we're just traveling as we normally do.
With at least 2 cars behind you.
With at least 2 other cars behind us in the convoy. Okay. And we always convoy just in case somebody does break an axle or whatever, and we can pick them up. Anyway, so there's this guy in a uniform. Looks like he's coming down the left-hand shoulder of the road.
How far away?
We noticed him when he was about a football field away.
Okay.
And he's kind of like standing there, and then he saw us, and he started like running towards us. And he had this funny look to his running. It was like he was falling forward all the time, or like he was running against a really strong wind.
Is he from far away though? As you're first seeing him, is he running in a way that would suggest, oh, this seems like a human?
Yes, somewhat. Yeah, he looked about human size and everything else. Yeah, everything. He just looked like he had a uniform on like mine, and he was just running towards us. And as we approach, that's when I noticed his skin had this blue tint to it, like he was hypothermic. That's what I thought. My immediate thought was that he was hypothermic, and he needed help.
So it's like it's white skin, but it's turned like almost the blood's rushing. It's not like a dark ocean blue or something.
Oh no,
like that.
It's definitely not like dark navy blue or anything.
Right.
No, this is just like you or I. We're cold as all get out, and we're starting to freeze. That's what it looked like to me. That level of blue was like, holy crap, you know. That was the level of blue. It wasn't because he was like dark blue or anything. It was just this undertone of blue. So anyway, we get closer and closer, and he's only a few feet away from the car, and we're slowing down. And the guy in the front seat, that's where I mentioned in the film with you that that's when he screams out that he's got no ears. The guy in the front seat. And I'm like...
the guy in the front seat that's sitting next to the driver?
Yeah, the passenger side guy in the front seat says he's got no ears, and I'm thinking, how rude. You know, this guy's probably fighting for his life here, hypothermic, and you're talking about his ears, you know? So I'm popping open the door. I'm trying to take my jacket off at the same time because I'm thinking I got to wrap him in something because he's hypothermic. And that's when I step out onto the roadway, and I'm shutting the door, and that's when I look up at him, and I'm realizing he has no ears, and his eyes are twice as big than normal, and he does indeed have this blue tint, and that's when I felt like really scared because I was like, oh crap, what did I walk into here?
How close is he to you now?
He's only like 3 feet. It's like,
he's right in front of you.
It's like, you know, me and James apart.
Is he looking you in the eyes?
Not immediately. He kind of, as I'm shutting the door and he realizes that I'm about ready to engage with him, he was like looking at the driver. I don't know what he was thinking about doing, but maybe he was going to hail him or knock on the window. I don't know.
Are you looking to see if he's armed?
No.
No.
I'm just more concerned for his health.
Okay.
At that point, because if he's on the range, you know, I'm thinking he's in a uniform. You know, there were no red flags for me to sit there and think like, oh, this is the criminal or this is some fugitive that's on the run, you know, or stuff like that. This guy just looked like a dude in a BDU uniform or battle dress uniform like I had. So anyway, but now I'm looking at him straight on. I'm like, holy crap, this dude does not look human. And I'm starting to get really scared. But then he talks to me, and that calms me down because I had to respond. And he's wanting to fix and repair his craft, and he's asking for that material, the tantalum.
What did his voice sound like?
It was not English at all. He did have an auditory, he spoke, but it sounded more like Norwegian or something like that.
So you couldn't understand what he spoke, but you could understand what he was saying because there was something telepathic going on.
Right. I could understand what he was saying, regardless of what he was actually saying.
What was he saying?
he was saying, my craft is damaged. I need some material to repair it. Do you have any tantalum? And I was like, is that titanium? He's like, no. And so I was like, well, pointed over to the Dreamland, Groom Lake. And I said, those people might have some high-tech metals and things like that. And this wave of emotion hits me like disgust. Like I'm not asking people like, barbarians for that.
From him, he's saying that.
He's saying this, and I'm getting that telepathic emotion of his being disgusted about it, me even mentioning it.
Are you at all looking at the guys at any point here who are with you?
Yeah, I tended to look over a couple of times.
And what are they doing?
They looked like they were just zonked like zombies. Like I almost laughed. Really, they looked comical, like just totally.
Literally like the Men in Black movie where people are stunned.
Yeah, and they're just. They're just kind of like they're just zoned out.
Yep,
that's what they looked like. So anyway, I look at them a couple of times, and he keeps talking to me.
Did the driver have the window down or the window up? Sorry, does the driver...
I think at one point he did start rolling his window down, but when he saw my door was opening up, I think he rolled it back up because it was freaking cold. And he probably wanted to, stop the cold air from coming in. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe the window was down partially, maybe.
Yeah.
He could have, but I don't really remember, to tell you the truth.
You're reacting to what's happening right here, and you're having this communication, so there's like a lot of senses going on here.
Right.
But first of all, how long is this full encounter with him? We're going to get to
Not
how
very
it ended,
long. It couldn't have been more than 5 minutes.
Okay. Is there a point in there where you are like, holy shit, I'm talking to a fucking alien?
Well, yeah, after I realized this guy's talking another language, I'm being preoccupied by his constant talking to me. And, I got the distinct impression that I was like in a holy crap situation. So, yeah, I felt definitely that there was definitely that this person was not human. I've never been talked to by James or you telepathically like that. And if you have another language as your first language and still understanding you, I've never had that happen before or since.
So how does it end? You talk for 5 minutes. What happens?
He ends up going back to his craft. He gets into it, and as he's traveling above the roadway and travels off in the south to southeast range or of the range, and it's kind of towards Vegas, actually. And he just takes off, and then everybody in the car finally is coming to, and they don't have that zonked out look anymore.
What does the craft look like, by the way? You did share it in the program documentary, link in the description below. Go check it out. Great documentary, James. But what does it look like? It's
kind of got a bulbous cockpit, and it's got like a little pad or footprint thing that comes off of it. Mm-hmm.
How big?
It can hold like two people, like a cockpit of a fighter jet.
Had you ever seen anything like it before?
Never. You're talking to a guy along with the other people in the convoys that were there the week before. You literally, when you do the red flag exercises, you see all these craft, not just your own in our inventory, in the American inventory, but we are actually helping our allies to train also with us. So we literally knew what the bombers, the fighters, the every type of aircraft, we already knew what they looked like. And this fit none of it. Mm. And that's exactly the feeling I had, because it had a bulb, like an egg-shaped cockpit that was about the same size as a normal fighter jet cockpit would look like. It has this black pancake egg that's flat. It's about a foot or foot and a half wide, sticking out the back where like if it was a helicopter, it would have been the tail of the helicopter. Mm. And then, you see those helicopters that have like a big rounded canopy or whatever where the pilots sit.
Yes.
That's kind of what it looked like, but it was all white except for this black pancake.
How far? I think you just said this. I might have missed this. How far away was the craft from where you guys were first talking with him?
About 50 yards.
50 yards.
Yeah.
So when you're talking with him, did you notice the craft in the background? Like, were you looking at that at all?
Yeah, because when I was getting out of the car, I definitely looked to my left as well. And that's when I saw it full on.
Was the craft parked on the road or in the desert?
It was in the desert. It was off the road because as we were traveling, this is the road towards Quartz Mountain.
Yeah.
the craft was off to the side of the road, off the shoulder of the road in the desert.
Do you think you'd be able to take us back to that exact
I
location?
could point exactly where it was. I could get you probably within about 10 feet.
Okay. So he goes back. How did the conversation end, by the way? Like, what was the last thing
He just,
said?
well, when I mentioned talking to those people and he got disgusted, it ended pretty quick after that. But I
He's
just
like,
said,
I'm getting the fuck out of here.
yeah, well, he just said, no, that's not going to work. And I said, well, the only other people I could think of is I go to college downtown Vegas because I was going to the community college. And I was like, I knew a geophysical professor, and I'm like, maybe he's got a metallurgist specialist friend of his. And I was like, maybe they have a professor down there. And he's like, okay.
And were you speaking English to him?
Yeah, I had to speak English.
So you weren't thinking things; you were speaking.
I was speaking, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But he understood.
He understood.
But he's speaking back to you telepathically.
Yes.
Well, but was his mouth moving like gibberish coming out of his mouth?
Because he's speaking like Norwegian.
Yeah. It's kind of like if I could talk to you and I could say something like in Spanish, you know, like, "No puedo caminar más."
But a Duolingo in my head is giving me English.
Yeah, but at the same time I'm saying it in Spanish, yeah, you're understanding everything I said.
I got you. Okay. So he goes back to the craft. Now, the craft had a problem with it. He said he needed some shit, but he takes off in it.
Yeah.
When it takes off, does it make any noise?
Yeah, kind of like a strange sort of I don't know how to put it. What could I equate it to? It's kind of like, you ever hear your fan belt squeaking in your car?
Yes.
Like, it's kind of like that. Yeah.
Okay. So
any wings, any propeller blades?
Zero.
No,
so it just moves
Zero.
up straight?
Yeah, it kind of takes off like this, and then as he starts traveling horizontally, he's going up in like stair steps.
Because he had an issue with the craft.
Right, and I think it was just when he was doing vertical, gaining altitude or losing altitude, that's the part that was broken.
And then at some point he disappears from view.
Right. Yeah, he just takes off and goes out of view.
All right. Now you're no longer zonked guys are standing there, right?
Well, they're all in the car. Nobody else got out of their cars.
But they were you were saying when they had the zonk look, they're in the car.
They're in the car, and and as the guy is traveling back and I'm getting back in the car, they all come to, and then everybody seems to be normal. And
does anyone say, what the fuck was that?
No, I was just about to ask that question.
no, nobody is talking about it. And I'm like, did you guys see that? And they're like, no. Yeah, and they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just get to work.
All right, wait a second. Was it a no because whatever the fuck we just saw, we can never talk about because that shit's crazy? Or was it a
guy,
no like...
The ranking guy, I think he saw it. I know he saw some of it because he was the only one that flat out said no and don't talk about it.
So you think that maybe I'm putting words in your mouth right here. You think that at least some of them may have had some lost time on this?
Yes.
And for people out there, can you explain what lost time is?
That's just a portion of time where you're either physically hit in the head and you can't remember, or some other means like you've hear from abduction scenarios from other people where somehow these creatures are able to, turn you off for that amount of time. And then I've heard from other people that there's actually maybe even a time-space kind of a phenomenon that's encountered with other craft where their radios turn off and all the electrics in their car turn off, and then they get, they have missing time, but at the same time they feel like nothing happened.
You said something really interesting in the program, which I loved. I mean, it really resonated with me that when you made eye contact with this thing, this being, critter, person, whatever, that you almost had this snake bite. Like, what was that? Where did that?
That was the very first part of the conversation because that was when I shut the door and I looked up. It's like
and you got eyes with him,
right? And I locked eyes, and it was the strangest freaking set of eyes I'd ever seen. It was like a crocodile was freaking looking at me, and my fear instinct just went spiked. I was like, "Holy crap!"
like a bolt of adrenaline going through.
Oh
you,
shit! Yeah,
was it fear? Were you scared?
It was definite fear. I was like, "Holy crap! This guy's not. He's an alien." I was like,
So you look like you were looking into a crocodile's eyes.
Yeah, it was kind of the same thing you get if you stumble onto a rattlesnake. That's what it felt like. I mean, you just scared to death. You're like, oh, crap. You know, that's what I felt.
But you didn't feel threatened in the sense that
Not threatened.
That your well-being was at stake.
Here was a sentient being that I couldn't explain. If you could imagine that kind of a scenario, just like, you know, the first time you're scuba diving and you meet a whale for the first time, you're like, yeah, you know, that kind of feeling.
But you know what a whale is.
Yeah, and eventually you calm down and you realize that
It's a whale.
it's a whale and it's gentle and it doesn't bother you.
But you never figured out what this thing was.
No, I did not.
What happened? So you get in the car, they kind of come to. You're like, did you just see that? Some guys are like, no. What happens next? You guys just drive back to where you're going?
Well, we had to be at Black Mountain by a certain time to start our equipment up and everything else. So that was the foremost in our mind, or everybody else's mind. I was still reeling from the whole thing that I just experienced.
You driving in silence?
I'm just like, holy crap, what just happened? You know, kind of in shock, complete shock. And then we get to Black Mountain, we crank up our gear, start working our job, and we finish out the day and we go back to the hotel. And only the ranking guy was the one that I know remembers some of it, at least, because I talked to him later on.
Where? Like, how did that
At lunchtime. I had a very strange compunction. I don't know what the hell. It was cold as heck out there, but I wanted to go eat my lunch outside. There was like a compelling something that told me, go.
When you got to the place?
Yeah, when we got to Black Mountain. Yeah. So I ate lunch, and I walked down, and this is where my missing time comes in. I walked down about 100, 150 feet down the road from the top of Black Mountain, and I don't remember anything.
What do you say, Jason, to
I don't know where my lunch
skeptics out there that's going to look at you and say this guy's clearly full of doggy doo-doo?
Well, if that's the case, then I've passed a number of polygraphs. I've been
about this,
and we've had to talk about all kinds of parts of my life. It's never been a problem. They never knew about this incident. I never did that, so they never asked me a direct question. That did you ever meet an alien? No, they don't talk about that.
But you passed polygraphs regarding this incident?
Well, I passed polygraphs for my just to say that I've got integrity, that I'm an honest person.
Would you take a polygraph from this case?
Yeah, I would. I would. I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know what I saw, and that's kind of it. One of your movie names, I knew what I saw.
Yeah.
But you didn't go home and like say to your wife, "You're not going to believe this shit." There's none of that. You said all that.
Everybody else had shunned me. Had shunned the whole thing. I thought, well, I'm the only guy who wants to talk about this, or they don't know what happened. And like I said, the only guy that remembered any part of it was that ranking guy.
He was a driver.
He was the driver.
And you still have his name to this day.
Right. He's the guy that ghosted me.
Okay,
right.
You reached out to him. He responded, hey, good to hear from you. How you doing? Yep. You brought up the case, and then done.
Yeah, I said, remember that day back in 94, that UFO? And then I haven't seen
When is this? Like
2022.
Okay. So this is before you testify to Congress?
It's
privately?
Right. Yeah, it's before, because some of the people on the UAP task force had asked me to contact those people that were in the car.
Okay, so there's a couple. Now we got to get into the nitty gritty of like how you come out and everything that goes on there. First of all, to go back for just 1 second, in the course of your career, even after this event would apply, by the way, whether it be when you were stationed at Desert Storm doing things or in whatever zones you were, had you been on or near the front lines of combat situations?
Was I?
Yeah.
No, not during my normal job.
Okay. Were there things during your career, though, besides this event, which for obvious reasons is going to cause a lot of things to think about, but were there other things during your military career that you had some PTSD from, you would say?
Definitely.
Like what?
Just the things that I had to experience in the black program. Some of that stuff ended up being a really bad, dark time during my career. So that happened.
Like the things you would hear, for example, on the calls and stuff like that, like you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, just rocks your freaking world, some of that.
Yep.
And also just some of the parts of the program that I found very shocking, very dehumanizing.
Can you comment on that?
I tried I'm convinced there's just things that I can't talk about because the public's not ready. I've told this to other people that I've been interviewed with or been interviewing with, that I have tried to discuss certain things, and I could just tell people are just not ready for the full Monty on what's actually going on in that program.
Okay. I started to ask this earlier, but now that we have more context, I think it'd be better to dig into it now. When you were first read into this program, you had to sign things, right?
Yeah, you got to sign. Yeah, when I was in that video briefing I told you about when I got there for the first time, yeah, you have to sign paperwork.
Which, the standard, like, I will not talk about anything that happened in here, whatever, yada, yada.
Exactly.
So when you come out in 2020 or in 2022, why were you not arrested? Because
I was coming in as a whistleblower, and there's certain protections for that.
Under what statute, like, for this?
The NDAA.
The NDA.
And
the NDAA.
National Defense Authorization Act, yeah. There's whistleblower protection that was written by Gillibrand, Rubio, Schumer, Rounds.
Okay.
It basically protecting whistleblowers, but he wasn't releasing this stuff publicly. He was doing it in a skiff.
In a
with
skiff.
people with clearances.
Right.
And it was with Congress.
Congress.
Right.
It was with Senate and the House sides. Both of them had a skiff that they brought me in. So I fell under the NDAA, but besides that, there's like a few ways you can actually come forward with information and be like, you can do it like a concerned citizen, which is the method I went through. And like David Grush was going in under a more official investigative version of coming forward as a whistleblower because he had already filed an ICIG complaint, and then he was pushed through the Congress. Mm-hmm. So he went in after I did.
Didn't Congress put Grush in charge of investigating what the intelligence agencies knew? Or
then they screwed with his clearance, and he had to say, "Hey, they're screwing with me."
Oh, they screwed. So he pulled back the curtain, found something, and they started effing with him.
Right,
yes.
And that's when he filed his complaint.
Got it.
Right. So this is back. You have your event back in the earlier '90s. As time goes by after that, you continue to build a family, have kids, you continue your career. We already laid that out earlier. You were in the Air Force till 2007. You were then a private contractor from 2007 onward, I believe, until earlier this year,
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, and so you listed off some of the companies you work for, and you're read into the government because you're contracting for the U.S. government, so you're working in intel, effectively. So this is many, many years doing that. But, like, over time, whether it's right away or on set, whatever, did this change, like, did this start to have a negative effect on you as a person as far as, like, your mental mind state, knowing that, like, holy shit, I saw something that probably no one else sees?
It was not eating at me at all. I treated it just like I did with my bad memories of my dad. I just filed it away like I normally would when there was something that I just could not handle. And I just forgot about it as much as I could. What brought it back to the surface was when I was on the UAP Task Force Forum, and they posted the video of the UFO on the range when it's flying past Black Mountain. And I'm like, I know about that.
Wait, so, all right, hold on. I want to make sure I understand this because this is important. You said that brought it back to the surface. So you compartmentalized it and almost mentally assumed it didn't happen? Or am I misunderstanding that?
It's not that it didn't happen. It's just I didn't want to think about it. And I just assumed that it was best left to
You put it in a dark place deep inside of you.
I just went on with life.
And then, like a sleeper cell, in a way, it wakes up when you see that video.
Yeah. It floods back all of a sudden. I'm like, yeah, I know about this incident. And I actually sat on responding to the report on that particular, UFO incident back in 1994 on the Nellis test range. They posted the whole thing, and I thought about it for probably a good month before I responded.
Okay.
And then that's when I typed in there on the Top Secret Network on the UAP forum, and I just said, I've got more to tell you about this.
And to be clear, you were explaining this to me earlier before we got on camera, just so that we can have this all cleared up for everyone. Correct me wherever I'm wrong in this, but there was something called, as you just alluded to, a UAP task force that involved Congress, so they're in charge of it. And then within that, there's like a UAP forum, which is the term, and this is, you're able to access it through a portal if you are within any of the intelligence community.
Correct.
And you can then, like, go in and watch what's going on or whatever, and if you have something to say that's relevant, you can share it.
Correct.
So in that scenario, you're not paid or given financial incentive for any of that. So you're not employed by anyone. You are strictly just participating in what the
Yeah,
forum
you're
is.
helping the UAP task force through that forum to help them analyze, because there's only a very few people working for the task force itself.
Explain SIPR, because it's a secret network.
SIPR?
SIPR, yeah. It's an acronym.
Yeah, that's the secret level, and then
Can you look it up? SIPR. It's SIPR or SIPR.
I don't know.
But it's a network that you have to have clearances to access. You can't do it from the outside.
it's something.
SIPR.
It's like
Yeah, here we go.
SIPRnet?
SIPRnet. That's it.
Okay, we got it on
Bingo.
Wikipedia. So
All
the
right.
Secret Internet Protocol Router Network,
There you go,
SIPRnet,
protocol, yeah.
is a system of interconnected computer networks used by the U.S. Department of Defense and the U.S. Department of State to transmit classified information up to and including information classified secret by packet switching over the completely secure environment. It also provides services such as hypertext document access and electronic mail. As such, SIPRnet is the DoD's classified version of the civilian internet. SIPRnet is the secret component of the Defense Information Systems Network. Other components handle communications with other security needs, such as the NIPRNet, which is used for non-secure communications, and the Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communication System, which is used for top-secret communications.
That's the one I was on.
Okay.
JWICS, yeah.
JWICS is the one where the forum was. There is a forum also on SIPRnet, and there's also some unclassified chat rooms on the NIPRNet
Okay.
that handled some of the UAP discussions.
If you wanted to nip something in the bud, you'd use the NIPRNet.
Okay, so what years are we talking?
No, it had to do with females.
Oh, nipper.
What years are we talking when you first get involved with, let's just keep it high level, with the UAP forum? Like, when did that first happen?
My first encounter with that was probably 2022. I think that's when I discovered the UAP forum was there, and I was like, oh, I just poked around at it and looked at it and saw that there was.
And then this comes back.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did the process go down with you first getting into the skiff and, testifying to people privately? Like, how did that happen?
Once I posted my response to the UFO incident on the Nellis test range of 1994, I responded back that there's more to this story. I had an encounter the following week, and then I put in there, and then the whole group got to ask me questions. I responded very much like the same questions you guys are asking me, but I did it on the JWICS, or the top secret forum at that point. However, nothing was classified because this was just my trip up range, for the day. I just was driving to work, for crying out loud. It had nothing to do with the program or anything else. It was just, a strange day in my life. So anyway, that all took place, and then I get a call from David Grush and another gentleman that I shouldn't mention his name, but the two of them contacted me. The first thing I got was an email saying, hey, we need to do a high-level talk or questions with you. We just saw your posting, blah, 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 and I'm so-and-so. I work for the UAP task force. So I get on, I give them my contact. They call me up later that afternoon, and we start talking about the whole thing. And that's where things started rolling. And then come October, I'm getting a call from the congressional committees, and they're saying, can you come in and talk to us in November, December timeframe? I'm like, sure, I could do that. So I went and testified, and then David Grush came through. He
When
testified.
you say testified, you mean you gave statements in a secure place? What do you mean
In
by
the skiff.
testified?
Well, testifying to Congress. So
but not like in a hearing or something. It was like
in a
behind
skiff.
closed doors.
Yes, this
It's in a
was.
skiff, right?
So you went and gave information in a skiff.
I did a closed session.
Okay, sorry. Yeah,
Now,
just curious. 'Cause,
Without,
yeah.
obviously, you can't reveal who's in there, but approximately how many people are you able to say that?
Yeah, it was about 10 people per on the Senate side, and a few more on the House side. Because I had to start off on the Senate that morning. We did about a 3-4 hour interview where
And you
we
gave
got
the
to talk,
classified details needed to
Yeah,
verify what you were saying.
yeah, everything, and then they took me over to the underground train. They took me over to the House side.
Did you give names?
Yep. Give them
Locations?
names, locations.
What was their reaction?
Shock.
Was there anyone there really pushing back on you, like, come on? Or
Oh, yeah. There's a few of them that had some really good questions. Just like, well, you said tall whites and grays. Couldn't that be a code name? And I'm like, no, that's not the context of it.
all right, can you explain that context there? I know you've talked about this before, but we haven't talked about this today. So where did the tall whites and grays come into your
They were in a lab when I was monitoring, and
When
they
you
asked me
monitor.
about that particular event when they were in this lab. And the context of the conversation was that humans were not allowed to come into this lab until after the tall whites and grays were left.
Is this after your encounter?
This is before.
Oh, it's before.
Yeah. It's while I'm in the program.
So in the program, you have if you're monitoring this, a previous encounter.
Yes. It's a previous encounter. Yep.
Is this stuff you heard or stuff you saw?
I heard it.
Oh, you heard it. Okay.
I heard it. I was monitoring and recording that conversation. And like I said, you got to understand that this was not a deception plan, because it's insane for them to spend the thousands of dollars to have my team and the OSI come out for that 2 weeks and waste our time, because we were there for a very specific reason, and that is to keep their security on their
All right,
program.
let me play devil's advocate on that real quick. If it's just hearing it and not seeing it, which is not your fault, you're just hearing it, right?
Yep.
By the way, were they speaking English? Or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like the Norwegian type situation.
No.
I am just thinking about how compartments of the government could work with psychological testing and things like that. You have people like you and your coworkers who have been deemed through all kinds of testing to be highly competent, highly skilled, highly ranked, doing serious work, counter intel, the whole bit. So you check all these boxes. Therefore, meaning you're like the hardest guys to dupe with stuff, in a sense. So they may, and this is just a devil's advocate situation, if I'm looking at something that's not like what you talked about earlier, where you are actually seeing something, and it's just something you're hearing, and these terms like Nordics and grays and whites or whatever are thrown around, could you see a scenario where something like that is a part of you are the rat in the test tube unknowingly, that they're trying to figure out, like, well, let's see how he reacts to this?
I would say there's a very small chance that that could happen.
Okay.
Because to me, it doesn't make logic sense that they put me through all the training, went and spent all the money on my polygraph and everything else, and the background check, which ultimately costs like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then just to dupe me, it doesn't make sense.
In all fairness, though, hundreds of thousands of dollars to the government.
Can you delete that?
They don't give a fuck about that. This is the same people who waste $2 trillion without asking.
Yeah.
Without batting an eye. So that part I wouldn't care about as much. But I see what you're saying. It would be a lot. There'd be a lot of lines they cross to do that.
Correct. Because usually, if they're going to do a deception like that, it's got to go all the way up to the DoD level. Usually,
Does it?
To get approval to do that kind of a thing. Yep. And then they have to assign assets that have to fake the phone calls, fake the mission, fake the lab, fake everything, and be able to make it sound good enough for me to bite on it.
So you didn't, and to be clear, you didn't see the lab. It's all just audio we're talking about.
Yes.
Being talked about. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. So you share this in the skiff with the Senate and congressional representatives.
Right.
All right.
And people are looking at it like you're cray-cray.
But some people are also shocked, you said, too, right?
Yeah.
Meaning, like, they're not saying, like, all right, there's some people who are thinking maybe this isn't all bullshit. Maybe there's something here.
Yes. Because I told them that was not the context, because if it was a code name, it would have been used differently syntactically in the conversation. The way they were talking about it was that this was a group of entities that are called grays, another group of entities that's called tall whites, and another group of entities that's called humans. And I have listened to many conversations about where they use code words. They don't fit that the way we come up with code words.
In your opinion. Yeah.
They are not military code words by any means. They don't match any of the ways that we come up with code words. And that just made zero sense to me. And I just told the guy on the committee, no, that's not what I heard.
And what was just for the full context of it, what did you learn about the, working relationship here between, I guess, like, other galactics and and
I did hear
military?
Ashtar Command, honestly. I did hear that. And
You heard what?
Ashtar Command, I had actually on a sheet of paper, and I looked to the other alliance. That's another one that they came over and they listened to the conversation themselves. Because I said, do we have like a command or a headquarters in India? What is this, What is Ashtar Command? Have you ever heard of this before? And
Ashtar Command.
Ashtar Command, yep. I still don't really know what that means. But
You don't know what I mean. Okay.
well, I've heard from the UFO community that they believe that the Ashtar Command is actually a command that's out there in the galaxy or something.
We're getting into speculation.
Yeah, that's
Right.
yeah.
And this is
Let's reel it
Let's
back.
not go there.
Yeah. So,
All right, we're already in kook, woo woo here.
right. So anyway,
Yeah, hit the joint. Let's go.
but anyway, so I did hear that one, and that was another one where I was like, I don't know what Ashtar Command is. Neither did any of the other analysts, so that was another mystery to us. But yeah, those were the kind of conversations that raised my eyebrows. Yeah.
Okay. So you come forward in 2022. James, when you had said earlier, you mentioned some of the conversations that happened where Jason came up, and it was some sources you trust within government who were telling you about his experiences that I guess they learned through this process. When was that again for the first time?
2023.
When in
Yes, 23.
February.
Okay.
Probably February 2023.
So when you're in D.C. That's
Yeah.
when you're in D.C.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So when do you two first connect? Then?
Well,
Y'all let him explain. He knows what happened behind the scenes.
Yeah, so
All I know is I ended up having dinner with him.
yeah.
Okay,
So
turn back here.
I get an email, and you know what? I'm going to keep this individual who introduced us out. Keep this individual's name out, just because I don't know if it's. So I get an introductory email for Jay Stratton. It's like Jay Stratton, James Fox. Don't know how much. Which one of you has more time in the field? James Fox has been all over the world, as you know. He makes documentaries. Jay Stratton's been on the inside, investigating the UAP task force, yada, yada, yada. I just want to make your guys' connection. I was like, wow, I've heard about Jay Stratton. That's great. I'd love to. And so I responded just with one. No, I responded to both of them. Hey, really nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. I'm in D.C. for a month filming. If you'd like to get together for dinner, drink, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then he responds with just me, not including this other individual who made the introduction. And he says, actually, I'm not Jay Stratton, I'm Jay Sands. But I was part of the...
The program.
Yeah, but you used the word legacy.
Legacy program.
Yeah, I was part of the legacy program. I was like, oh, okay, well, this is kind of funny. So we ended up, I don't know what it was, a night, 2 nights, 3 nights later, going out to dinner with this other individual and some other people that are in the UAP field, very credible individuals. That, again, I didn't get their permission to mention their names, but you would have heard of them.
Okay.
We all go to dinner together.
Check where Lou was, Alessi.
And we all go to dinner together, and that's when he drops this story at Nellis Test Range, and I was like, God, you got to be kidding
James was
me.
like,
I was like, oh boy, this is wow.
Yeah, you want a beer
I
with
don't know
that?
about that. I'm thinking to myself every time. So essentially, I'm just trying to process as to whether I believed him or it or whatever. And I have to say, okay, James, I've learned from so many decades in this field that don't have that knee-jerk response that you've had with Virginia and Rua and all these other cases, Socorro.
Mm-hmm.
That's impossible. There's no way. God, no. But I said, okay, well, I'm going to suspend judgment. I'm going to listen to this, and I'll maybe dig into it a little further. Leave it at that. Because same with Holloman. I believe that Holloman happened. Never that I heard myself say that. The 1964 alleged landing at Holloman Air Force Base, where contact was made. And there's a whole long story, and I don't really want to get into it.
we covered that in episode 138.
Thank you. So, so anyway, so we get to know each other a bit. I'm meeting other people that were involved, the task force, and having dinners and drinks. And
Did you get to see Whiskey James?
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Yeah,
But
that's a demon right there.
I tell you,
he was
I've heard.
getting a little bit harassed. You were concerned. You were working out at the Pentagon, I think, at the time, and you said your car had been left
NSA.
open.
I was working at NSA.
Sorry, yeah, your car had left open, and you were getting a little paranoid.
Yeah.
You were just concerned. You were on edge.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I got a camera crew here. I'm in D.C. If you want, it's all totally up to you. I'm not forcing you to do anything. If you want to get some testimony on camera, just as a security issue, an insurance policy, if you feel like you're anyway threatened or just concerned, put that out as an insurance policy, and at least it's documented on camera. He said, yeah, I think I'll do that. I think you spent a couple of days thinking about it, and you said, screw it, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So he came. filmed, and I filmed primarily from the back, but I did put one camera on his face just in case. And I always post like on social media updates on my film process updates. And I posted a production still, and it had a clipboard in it. He was not even in the photograph, or maybe his back of his shoulder was in it.
I think, yeah.
But it said Jason.
There's a clipboard that said Jason, so I outed him.
Right.
And people zoomed in, and then that's when
I'm like, hey, there's a Jason.
everybody
Sands
started attacking him, and then he sat quietly on the sidelines and then eventually engaged, and that's how it all went down.
I had to talk to my leadership right after that because people were asking questions. And
I had so many people contact me going, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." So
But anyway,
it was a shitstorm.
Yeah.
And I felt terrible because he hadn't gone through the adoption process. He was a whistleblower behind the scenes. He had no intentions of making his name public. And so that was me.
Okay. So, and I want to, where we go from here, I want to tread respectfully and carefully just to run through where your mind was at stuff. I don't want any of it to be accusatory or whatever. I just want to be able to clear things up so you have a chance to put your testimony in front of people. But after this happens, the program obviously comes out December 2024. So this is long before that.
No, the program came out in
December 2024.
Oh, okay. So sorry.
Yeah,
Right,
this is way before.
Yeah, right. So I thought you said September. Yeah,
Right.
Fair, yep.
So long before that, in April, you decide after James tweeted and deleted that picture, so your name's been outed or whatever, but you decide to hop on a Twitter Spaces and tell part of your story for the first time. What was the thought process on? Because I chuckled a little bit, like when I saw, oh, this guy came out on a Twitter Spaces, like of all the fucking places. What was your thought process on doing it there?
Well, I had been listening to what people were saying, mainly because I was interested to see how far my name was going to be used. And I was still going through my pre-publication process, which was my last step in the legal ability to talk publicly. Because I knew inevitably it was, people are going to figure out who I am eventually. So those kind of played a big factor in my mindset. And then I think the week prior to my coming out in April of that year, that I decided, I was like, okay, I've got all my ducks in a line. I'm sick and tired of people making up stuff about their imaginary this, imaginary that, about what was going on with me. And making up stuff that I'm like, that's totally not right. Totally not right.
I'm sorry to cut you off. What do you mean by all your ducks in a line? Like
just all my legal stuff. I talked to Congress and got my NDAA, whistleblower status. Then I went to Arrow and I talked to them, which I also was asked to do. Then I was told I had to also go to the ICIG and file a formal complaint. And then my last step was to get my pre-publication completed.
Intelligence Community Inspector General, ICIG.
Okay.
Yeah.
The head of that was Thomas Monheim, I believe. Yeah.
Got it. So this essentially, though, in that initial Twitter Spaces in April 2024, you told the story, at least in a lot of the detail of everything we've covered so far today. That's fair to say, right? Maybe there's a couple things we got to today that weren't in there, but for the most part, like it's pretty much everything.
They asked me all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I can't even remember all. Oh, jeez, I didn't even expect to be in. I thought I was just going to come in for a half hour and leave.
Yeah, well, you thought wrong.
They did not.
Yeah,
they did not let me go.
6 hours or something? It was a long time.
I didn't even realize it, but I eventually was like, man, I'm freaking tired and I'm hungry.
Okay, so, and then I can say this now because you talked about this publicly actually when you recorded with Joe, but you had told me this back before. You and Joe Rogan talked, I guess, like sometime over the summer and connected Jason with Joe to talk with him. Right?
Kind of, yes.
Yes. So you spoke with him and did you basically give Joe the same testimony you gave on the Twitter Spaces?
No, it was a very summarized version.
So even less.
Joe wanted to get in touch with Grush because Grush had just testified in open hearings.
And you know Grush.
And he knows Grush. And so I said, he said, can you get me to Grush? And I said, yeah, I got a guy. So I said, is it okay if I get and I connected the two. Boom, they took it from there.
Right. So I'm sorry, I had the timeline. So this is way before, right? So you guys connect. You at least give him like a summarized version of what was going on.
Yeah, because he's like, "Who are you? How do you know Grush?" And all this stuff. So I just had to tell him a little bit about my background, and then we started talking. He's like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
All right.
He called me when I had the drone in the air. I was flying in England, and I was on my way to meet Gary McKinnon. Yeah, and I was getting some B-roll because I saw
James. Stay here.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah,
You're good.
I was getting some B-roll because when I'm traveling, if I see a pretty shot, I usually have my drone with me, and I had a drone that didn't have a built-in camera, so I had to put my phone in place for the camera. I'm sorry, not the camera, the screen, so I could see what the drone is filming. And since then, I've gotten one with a built-in screen because it's so much quicker, so much easier. But I'm sitting there flying the drone up by a big windmill, and I've got the drone right up where the windmill blades are spinning because I want to get this really dramatic shot. And my phone's ringing. I look, and it's Joe Rogan calling me. I'm like, oh, my God, I got to get this.
I got to stop.
I answer the phone while my drone's in the air. I swear to God. And I'm talking to Rogan, and he just got off the phone with Sands. He's like, what the fuck? Who is this guy? That story's crazy. I was like, I know. It's pretty wild. Meanwhile, I'm seeing these blades going, just missing my drone. I'm like, it was really funny. I actually told him that, but yeah.
And it really happened. That's the way it went down.
Right.
Okay. So that's how.
And that's long before. At that point, that's long before the Twitter Spaces, because that's when he wanted to get in touch with.
Yeah.
That was because he fully wanted to talk to Grush.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now here's what I want to get at, because I think this is important to give you the opportunity to go through like where your head's at and why you're claiming some of the things you are and whatever, and we'll let people decide on that. But when you did this Twitter Spaces in April, there was actually a guy, Vetted, I believe. Shout out Vetted.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen a video on this, I think a couple weeks ago, who apparently at the time had heard through the grapevine of a couple other people he was connected to that you had a story of being ordered to assassinate an alien. Now, this was like at the time shot down or whatever, and then fast forward from April 2024 when that was first like floated by him and he caught backlash for that. Now fast forward to December 2024. The program comes out on the 16th, and I believe like a day later, I forget who it was with. I'm sorry. I'll put the link in description. But you do like a 22-minute interview, I think it was, on YouTube. Who was that with? Do you remember?
I think it was with Digby for now.
Alessi, can you look this up real quick? Jason Sands interview alien assassination, and look for the one that's 22 minutes. I want to get back.
And while he's looking at that, I'll respond a little bit.
Yeah,
but
please.
Anyway, Vetted had put out the video, but he said something like, "I killed a blue alien."
Yes.
And I was like, "Oh shit, that is not what I said," because he was confusing two different things. Because
who had you said this to, or whatever he was misinterpreting?
I don't know who he talked to behind the scenes, but I did mention it to only one other or two other people.
Okay.
That there was some stuff that I had, some work that I had to do that I don't like talking about because it brings PTSD back. But the other thing was that this blue alien, I was like, no, I didn't kill a blue alien. So I immediately called Vetted, and we settled it up, and I said, look, that's not right. And I said, can you take it down? Because it's not correct. And then he didn't take it down, but he corrected himself. But that's because I contacted him.
Yeah.
And we got to know each other. He's a really great guy, and he's also somebody I consider a friend through all this.
Yeah.
He doesn't agree with all my stuff, and I don't care about that. It's not his life.
Yeah, and this is the video right here, post-disclosure world. That's who it was who you did this with.
Yeah.
So this is what I want to get at, because you don't say any of this back in April. And when you talked with James and gave the testimony on the documentary, you didn't mention any of this. You didn't mention lost time unless that was on the cutting floor, James. You can fill that in.
Yeah, I don't remember about the lost time, but I definitely remember I called Jason. I was like, dude, you are killing me right now. What are you talking about?
All right.
You want to kill the credibility of all the testimony. I'm already riding the line with you, this encounter, so.
All right, so.
I was having a big issue.
Yes, and you have to understand this is like a crazy claim for the average person like me to hear.
The blue alien's already tough.
That's already tough. Agreed.
Yeah.
But like when you're like, I was forced to assassinate for the Intergalactic Federation, whatever, it gets to like, all right, what
crazy
the fuck?
Status.
So my first question is, before we get into it, because I want you to explain what this was, what was the decision-making process for you, A, not to share that with James when you testified on the documentary, and B, not to share it in the Twitter Spaces when you went public and had a 6-hour forum to share your experience?
Initially, I thought it was bad I didn't want to talk about it for the film because it was something that I did not like to talk about to begin with or even remember. And mainly that I was comfortable talking about other subject matter. However, there are people that are close to me that did get to have more information than even Congress did in certain aspects, and one of them is this particular part of the program that they run that deals with, no kidding, stuff that is cleaning up problems for themselves, and be that human or otherwise, that being the case. So they do have a part of the program and people that do handle that.
In
part.
your opinion?
In my opinion.
Okay, let's leave it at that.
Yeah. So anyway,
Please.
that's the kind of thing that I was asked about. Now, was there a thought process when they asked me this? No, they caught me off guard is what happened. Because like I said, the PTSD, dealing with some of this crap that goes on inside the program is very hard to handle.
And just so that people have transparency out there, because you have said this publicly, what is it that you explain was the context with this? As in, you received an order from someone at some point that said, you got to shoot this NHI. And
I feel really uncomfortable talking about this because this is a credibility destroyer, in my opinion, and it really bothers me that you're talking about it, and I don't want to be connected to it in any way.
It's going to bring back...
or form.
Actually...
And I've already told them that.
All right, so
if
hold
you're
on.
going to make those claims, I'm walking out the door.
No, I'm not.
I'm sorry.
I have to tell you...
It's already bad enough.
Yeah, because right now we're treading a line where
even if it's true, don't talk about it.
Right, and
not to say that I believe it. It's a credibility killer, and it's horrible.
James, I understand that.
Yeah.
When you interviewed Jason,
he didn't tell me
for
about
the
any of that.
documentary, there's none of this there.
No.
You've already described how you went through and vetted it.
Yeah.
Nothing's perfect and whatever. No story's
for sure,
perfect with anyone, regardless
I'm
of
just
who
saying,
it is.
I don't feel comfortable talking about it.
Okay.
It's something that I would like. It's horrible that it even happened. And I've explained to him, if you're trying to discredit your entire everything, then continue on that path.
Then let me ask this. I'm
really uncomfortable.
All right, listen.
Just so you know,
out of respect for you, I'm going to refer people to the post-disclosure podcast where that was said.
Yeah.
Okay, we will have the link. Make sure we have the link to that in the description, Alessi. Yeah. I'll double check that.
And so to clarify on my side,
yes. Okay. Why? What made you want?
Regardless, I was caught totally off guard.
But why did you say it?
Because they asked me. Anybody who knows me knows I'm an honest guy. That I will, if I have a question that I'm given, I will give you at least what I can talk about. But this also made my head spin when they asked me this, because this is attached to some very dark times that I had to go through in those years. So, out of respect for me, at least, it took me a good week to get my head back after that interview. Mm-hmm. Okay, it was that bad. I mean, you're talking like a PTSD kind of a on fire kind of guy. That's what happened to me, and I do not want to walk that path again.
So what I think, let me step in here for a second, if you don't mind, and editorialize. Because I got to look at this from my seat, from a journalistic perspective, from a human being perspective, from a what we've heard today perspective, all of it put together. I had mentioned earlier, I don't think any one human is perfect. I don't think any one story is perfect. I think there's a lot of gray area. I think that you've done an amazing job today demonstrating your life story, the credibility of things you literally have done in the military.
Yes.
The person you are and where you came from. I was sitting here, moved borderline to tears, hearing about your childhood and how you overcame that and all that. I think that's incredible. Mm-hmm. You have also voluntarily mentioned, and I completely understand this and have the utmost respect for it, that naturally through many experiences in your life, from childhood to the military to some of the stuff we talked about today, you certainly have PTSD, which I talked with you off camera before. That is a subject that's very passionate, that I'm very passionate about. I've had the honor of speaking with a lot of guys, especially people in the military, but some other people as well in other contexts on this podcast. Probably about, I think I told you 15 or 20 times, but I think it was probably more than that. I have to go back and count it in the course of this podcast. And, I understand that the way that sometimes stories are expressed and memories are repressed or pulled out is not always perfect. So I have respect for that. And I have respect for the fact that maybe there are things you've said along the way where you get caught off guard, you remember something that didn't happen, or you remember something in a different context. Not putting words in your mouth. I'm just saying hypothetically.
No. Here's my mind on exactly what I feel about that experience.
Okay.
I'm still dealing with, even if it's a nightmare or a memory at this point.
Yep.
Because I have avoided it. for so many years. I have also, I have a psychiatrist that I talk to every month about PTSD, but I have not broached what I have been exposed to in full with that person. And I am going to discuss everything with that person. And if the decision is that, yes, this is just a repressed memory, or if this is just something that happened and your mind is trying to do something with you and making you, come up with a different memory just so you can survive that memory, I want that psychiatrist to get their professional opinion, not some guy on YouTube or some guy on Twitter. They're not qualified for that. All that happened was I got asked a question. I was caught off guard. It spiked my PTSD. That's where it is. Give me a break. I'm going to go back and ask the right questions and make sure that my psychiatrist knows, and I'll talk about it. And whether or not it's personal or not after that, and I want to talk about it again, that's kind of up to me, and whether it's going to harm me or not. Right now, I've already received a great deal of harm. And
which I feel bad for because I was the one that exposed you. So, that was that was all on me.
Well, not this one. I mean, this one was kind of on me.
No,
it's
I'm saying your name is out
I
there
did not
because
have
of
my
me.
guard. I did not have my guard up properly, and they caught me off on a question, and I was like, shit. After I'd said it, I thought to myself, shit, I never should have brought this up. And I should have just told them, I am not comfortable talking about this. Leave me alone about it.
Okay. Did it particularly sting when some members of the military community were...
I have the greatest respect for the vets and the JSOC folks. The people that they actually interviewed with knew what they knew. But like the guy who was in my career field and said, oh, Jay couldn't have been in a SAP program and he couldn't have been leaving for 2 weeks without everybody noticing. I just showed you why that guy's wrong. JSOC, I have never claimed to have been a JSOC guy. I helped them cover down their security on it. So the JSOC guy, full respect for. Yes, he knows his stuff inside and out. He does not know all of the black programs and who's being hired, because some of those guys are like him and didn't make the cut and then became mercenaries. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some other people out there that have testimony that can say that there are some really nasty types in the mercenary corps in these black programs.
For sure.
And so the JSOC guy, give him credit. He did a great job, putting up what he does for a living. And I totally respect that.
You had mentioned way earlier that none, and we've mentioned a few times throughout, that none of this, when it was happening or whatever, was discussed with your family in any way, but you did discuss it in recent years around the time where you were going to be coming forward with your wife and your kids. What were those conversations like?
They were tough. I mean, when I told my wife, she just literally was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I remember so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And when I took off on this and that, this is where we went. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, that was a mission that I did for the program. And she was like, you kept this from me? It turned into a kind of a fight. Because I was like, yeah, I did it. And I didn't tell you. So it was tough. And then some of my kids, they were like, oh, this is good. And other times, I've got two of the kids are just like, I don't know what to think. But most of them are just in general just saying, yeah, this could have happened.
Well, it is obviously mind-blowing stuff, to say the least.
It is.
And
it's not an easy walk either.
No, I know.
And I hope that one day we all will be able to hear the full Monty and not have all this, to me, having experienced it the way I did, this is my reality, okay? However, you guys did not have to go through the things I did. Yeah. At some point, I'm hoping that we get to the point of reality that we're not alone, where you guys will get to know what I know. And you're going to be like, holy shit, Jay was never telling us a lie. We just couldn't accept it at this point in time. And that may be a day within our lifetime. And I'm hoping so. And that's my point of wanting to come forward as well, is that this is not, and here's another thing about my way of thinking about why I did it on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I've seen so many people, good people with integrity, clearances, and everything, come forward to Congress and failed. So many, decade after decade after decade after decade of people coming giving testimony. And I thought, well, nobody's tried reaching out to the public, and now we've got these great social platforms to be able to do this. And I thought, just about every great thing that this nation has done has been from the people. You know, we're the ones who fought for our independence. You know, all these great things we've done all throughout our lifetime as a nation. And I was like, maybe the people are the missing key. Maybe that's the thing that's going to push Congress to actually go out there and get the investigation done and get to disclosure, you know. And then maybe some of the other people that have been in the program with me will come back and say, yeah, everything Jay said that's true. I know that they did this and they did that.
And
but we're not there yet.
That's the thing. Even if you go back and some things actually are repressed things where other memories that maybe didn't happen come back, but there are pieces of what you say. Let's even put a low percentage on it. Let's say if 10% of what you say is real, it's a big deal.
It is.
And I want to not only give you that respect, but also at least leave open the possibility that there are things we're dealing with that we cannot conceive of in the general public that guys like you are helping to bring forward. Now, you've talked about these other whistleblowers. Obviously, David Grush is the most well-known of them, but there's around 40 or whatever who are in this network that he's talked to. You've had a chance to talk with at least a few of them. Have you had some tough conversations with them where you guys are talking about each other's stories and being like, really? Did that really happen?
Yes. Yep. All the time. They've experienced other things, and other times I've been very accepting because I'm like, yeah, that fits what I know. There's some whistleblowers and I'm like, I don't know what to think about that.
Somebody was telling me just the other day that I actually respect the opinion of this individual who seemed to be in a position to know that there are only roughly 20 people on the entire planet that have the bigger picture.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because see, and that was the kind of the curse and the beauty of my position is that I had to be read in at the umbrella level like the leadership is. So I didn't have to go, you know, if I went to Wright-Patterson, I didn't have to do a bunch of read-ins. I could just automatically go in and start monitoring without having to read into it, all the programs they have running through there. And then also I had the luxury of being able to listen to the people at the tactical level that had all the detail of what was going on a day-to-day basis inside those programs. There's very few people that have that level of detail and the big picture that the leadership knows. And that's what my team was hired to do, is that we listened to all of that. So it's a very unique level of information. But think about it. Let me give you an example then, just to run through your mind that you can understand where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. And this is what I kind of did with Congress too, and I'll say it here as well. I'm not going to shortchange you on language, okay? I'm here for one reason only, and that is to make things better for people. And if you can't see that from the look on my face, the sincerity in my voice, then you got something else going on through your head. Because you can tell I'm a man that doesn't cotton to anybody else other than what I know and what I'm trying to do to help people. Now, let's put the shoe on the other foot now. Let's say that we're the intergalactic race, okay? And another civilization is looking at us, okay? What kinds of things in our society have I talked about that are really off my rocker if we're as messed up as we are right now? And you're a race coming in from another planet looking at what the hell's going on this planet and the crap we put up with.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here